Using silicone molds to make do-it-yourself projects can seem daunting, but with these tips, it'll make it easy. Hi, I'm Trish and welcome to my channel. Silicone molds can be used for a variety of projects, including making a beautiful French-inspired wall, updating some old furniture with some vintage inspiration, or even spicing up some old picture frames or mirrors to give them a gorgeous vintage patina. My first top tip is to choose the right molds and clay for your projects. My favorite molds are the Iron Orchid design molds, and that's because they have gorgeous designs and each mold has a raised edge as well as an exact measurement that really makes a big difference. Choosing a good quality clay or resin really helps to hold the fine detail and decreases shrinking and cracking of your project. If you choose the IOD molds, using a scale will help you minimize waste. This will make a huge difference to cost if you're doing a large project. Make sure to always store your clay in an airtight container, even in between making individual molds. Use a paintbrush to apply a little tapioca starch to your mold before adding your clay. This really helps to prevent sticking and makes demolding way easier. So just paint it on and then tap the excess off. Tip number 5 is to use plastic wrap to smooth the clay and keep it moist while you work on getting that clay into the mold. This is a super easy tip that is really helpful because if you get pulled away from your project, you don't have to worry about your clay drying out. It also really helps to create that perfectly smooth back for the glue to adhere to. My next tip is to use starch to clean the edges. This is where those IOD molds are really superior, as that raised edge just allows you to rub your finger along or use a little tool like this palette knife to just quickly clean off the edges and make it perfect. The plastic wrap comes in handy again when demolding. Put your plastic wrap on top and then just give it a little smack on the countertop. This way it won't come flying out and stretch when you're removing it. It will just gently fall out and be perfect. Although in saying that, nothing's ever perfect. So tip number 8 is to use a plastic or silicone palette knife to just run along the edges and clean them up. Tip number 9 is to lay out your design before gluing and to try mixing and matching molds. Try using a palette knife to isolate pieces of the mold that you like and then combine different molds together in order to get your own unique design. Laying it out before gluing like this allows you to play with pieces from different molds and create a beautiful design. When gluing your project, I recommend using that palette knife to just gently move the glue all around the back surface. You don't need a lot of glue if you put it on correctly. Then use a measuring tape to make sure that you've centered your piece exactly where you want it on your project, and gently press down without squishing the clay at all and pushing it really gently in towards the rest of the project. When the glue and clay dries, it will begin to pull away from the other pieces, so giving that gentle squish helps a lot. I also like to clean up any excess glue that has oozed off the edges. This will make for a nice clean edge. If you have corners in your project like I did here in this mirror frame I was finishing, use a palette knife to cut the pieces of the clay at a 45-degree angle on both sides before then gluing it down. Then you can use a straight edge to make sure that all those pieces are perfectly lined up at a 90-degree angle to the other corner. Sometimes you want a really vintage look with lots of cracks and spaces. However, sometimes you might want a smooth finish. If this is the case in your project, take some clay to fill in any cracks that may have happened and use your palette knife to just kind of smooth it out. You can use either a silicone one or a plastic one like I'm using here. Then, when there are spots where the clay has lifted up off of the surface, use some silicone-based paintable caulking. Cut the tip at a 45-degree angle, point that angle towards the surface you want the silicone to be in, and squeeze it in. Then immediately use a wet finger and a wipe and just wipe the excess off. Remember to use this caulking once your clay has dried, and in an hour you can paint your surface. My last tip is to use a lighter tone of paint in combination with different color waxes to highlight all those beautiful accents that you've made. I'll show you how I did this in another project coming up soon. Thanks so much for watching, and if you'd like to say thanks, please like, comment, and subscribe to my channel for more do-it-yourself.